Thank you. We are currently located on land which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange among the Mississaugas people and is the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation. We honor and recognize and respect the nation and its Indigenous people as the traditional stewards of the lands and water on which we meet today. Mr. Clerk, could you do a roll call, please, and the rules for today's meeting?
Anderson.
Here.
Ash.
Present.
Barton.
Present.
Carter. Carter. Mayor Carter, I did see you a moment ago. Chapman.
Good morning, Mr. Clerk.
Collier.
Good morning, I'm here.
Crawford.
Present.
Dyes.
Present.
Drew.
Present.
Foster. Foster. Absent. Grant.
Present.
Hyatt.
Present. Good morning.
Kerr.
Present.
Mayor Foster, you've joined. Leahy.
Present.
Lee.
Good morning. Present.
Mayor Pietri.
Good morning.
McLean.
Present.
Mitchell.
Present.
Mulcahy.
Good morning.
John Neal.
Present.
Joe Neal.
Here.
Nicholson.
Present.
Pickles.
Present.
Roy.
Good morning.
Ryan.
Present.
Smith.
Present.
Watson.
Present.
Yamada.
Here.
Chair Henry is present. Members, we're using Teams today. You have both the audio and video functions available. If you're requesting to speak or ask questions, you are respectfully requested to use the video function during that time. We have the chat box available. It's to indicate a request a question or request to speak only. You will not be acknowledged with any indicators until we get to that item. Please make sure that when you're not speaking, you're muted. And if we go into closed session, please ensure that you are in a private place. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And again, at 11 o'clock, we will break for a moment of silence. Members of Council.
Chair Henry, it's Mayor Carter. I am in attendance.
Yeah, thank you. We have you. Members of Council, declarations of interest.
I seem to, can you hear, Mr. Chair? It's Foster.
Yes, I can, Mayor Foster.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a declaration.
Councilor Mayor Pietri.
Yes, I just want to read it to you. The declaration is for the Works Committee report, item 5, planned sanitary sewer and water main construction on Thornton and Collin in the Northwoods and employment lands. I believe it's report 2021 W17, as I have family who own property and reside in the area.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of council? Mayor Drew? Okay, we will move on then. Members of council, we're on to item 4, adoption of the minutes. Could I get a mover on the regional council meeting of March 24th?
McLean, move it.
Moved by Councilor
Second,
McLean,
Roy.
seconded by Mayor Ryan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Opposed?
Aye.
Yes.
None, that carries. Could we get a mover and a seconder on Committee of the Whole Report 4.2?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Councilor Mayor Pietri, seconded by?
Smith.
Councillor Smith.
All those in favor?
Aye. Yes.
Yes.
Opposed?
Aye.
Oh, sorry. Opposed? None. That carries. We'll move on to item number 5, presentations. There are none. Item number 6, delegations. There are no delegations. Item number 7, reports related to delegations and presentations. We have none. Communications, CC 11, correspondence from the town of Ajax, Restop Asian Hate. Could I get a motion to refer this to the consideration of item 10.2 under notice of motions?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I'll second that.
Okay, moved by Councillor Marion Pietri. Who was the seconder?
Councillor Kerr?
Councillor Kerr. Okay, we'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? None. That carries. 1 second, please. Councillor or Mayor Drew, I understand that you were having computer difficulties and that you may have a declaration.
Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Sorry, I was having mic problems. Item number 1 of the Works Committee. My son is an employee of the Works Department and may be assigned to that job.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. You've got that. All right. Thank you, Mayor Drew. We will move on. Just give me 1 second. We'll move to committee reports and related notices of motion. So just 1 second. So moved by Mayor Foster, seconded by Mayor Collier, that recommendations contained in items 1 and 2, inclusive of report number 4 of the Finance and Administration Committee, be adopted. Polls. Just 1 second. Okay, just 1 second, please, members of council. Okay. Polls, Councillor Neal, Joe Neal on finance item number 2. Are there any other polls? On the remainder, we'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that carries. Councillor Joe Neal on item number 2. It's confidential. Oh, sorry, it's confidential. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah, I move, Mr. Chair, I would move that we move that to the end of the agenda.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Joe Neal, seconded by
John Neal.
Councillor John Neal, that we refer this item to the end of the agenda. Correct, Mr. Clerk? Okay, we'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Yes.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, that carries. Mr. Clerk, next sheet. Thank you. Okay. Moved by Councillor Chapman, seconded by Councillor Pickles, that recommendations contained in item 1 of report number 3 of the Health and Social Services Committee be adopted. Polls. Oh, sorry.
Mayor Henry.
So, all right, so item 1, we need to... So item 1 has some direction that is needed. So members of council, just give me 1 second. So members of council, the item before you is, I will need a mover and a seconder. And I'll just quickly read it. That the motion is that the nomination of Councillor Bob Chapman for the election to the Alpha Board of Directors for a two-year term to represent the Central East region be endorsed, and I need 2 members of council. So could I get a mover and a seconder?
Move it, Councillor Roy.
Okay, let me just...
Second, Barton.
Okay, so...
Guys.
Give me 1 second. So in the chat box, Mayor Foster, you're moving that item?
But who are the members?
Okay, sorry.
Yes.
So, 1 second, please.
And 26 members of council are the seconder.
Members of council, this is a two-part action. So right now, we're dealing with part A, and that is nominating that Councillor Chapman be endorsed, and then we'll deal with item B next. So just give, okay, so on that, it's been moved, and the seconder was?
Pickles.
Sorry, Councillor Pickles. So on item A, moving Councillor Chapman to this position. Councillor Chapman, you'll stand.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, we'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Opposed? None, that carries. Part two of that is that we need 2 members of regional council be identified to sponsor the nomination and complete the nomination form. As the vice chair of health and social services, Councillor Pickles, would you be comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay, so
Thanks.
so we'll need Councillor Pickles, and we'll need another member of council to do that.
Mr. Chair, as the mayor of the great city of Oshawa, I'd be proud to.
Okay, so Councillor Chapman. So could I get a member of council to move those 2 names, Councillor Pickles
I'll move those.
and Mayor Carter? So moved by Councillor Marion Pietri. Looking for a seconder.
Dies.
Councillor Dies.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Yes.
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 In opposition? Hearing none, that carries. Thank you. Thank you. We'll move on. Members of council, next report is planning, moved by Mayor Ryan, seconded by Councillor Joe Neal, that the recommendations contained in items 1 to 4, inclusive of report number 3 of the Planning and Economic Development Committee, be adopted. Polls?
Yeah, item 2, please.
I'm watching
Neal.
John Neal on, or Councillor John Neal on item 2 of Planning and Economic Development. Any other polls? On the remainder, we'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, that carries. On item number 2, Councillor John Neal.
Yeah, my question to this is, where does site alteration permits come into this number 2 in regards to Region of Durham soil and groundwater assessment protocol? Will they be writing a report when there's a site alteration request?
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Mr. Bridgman.
Right, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. They're separate issues. A site alteration bylaw is under the purview of the area municipalities. This is a protocol document that belongs to the region, and it's to help ensure that when development is taking place, that the soils are to the appropriate standard for whatever type of development is taking place. They are separate. The site alteration bylaws don't really relate to this exactly.
Councillor Neal?
So, yeah, through the chair, to Mr. Bridgman. So, when and if you have meetings with the CAOs, is this going to be discussed on the agenda? And when is the next meeting approximately? I know with the pandemic, everyone's tied up, but I have big concerns about the groundwater out in our rural area, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
And I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it should be an asset to the groundwater and aquifers should be an asset to the city and to the region. So that's why I'm asking for some protection. It's just not the Wild West out there when it comes to groundwater and people's drinking water and aquifers, etc. I'm asking for some protection from the region as well. Thank you.
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Chair, this protocol document, we have had something like this in place since 1997. That was when the first site contamination bylaw, as we used to call it, came into effect. It's been updated a couple of times since then, and this is yet another update to make sure that it aligns with the current legislation and so on. In preparing this document, we had full consultation with all our counterparts at the air municipalities. So in answer to Councillor Neal's questions in terms of when we will be bringing it to their attention, they're fully aware. We work with them on almost a daily basis in terms of implementing the protocol and making sure that the right amount of information is coming to us to ensure that the right protections are in place. So, for example, if somebody is developing on a site, we want to know what sort of activity has taken place before that might be a contaminant so that it can be cleaned up prior to, foundations and so on being put in the ground.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Members of council, any other questions to the item? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
In opposition? Hearing none, that carries. Just 1 second. Thank you. Members of council, we'll move on to the next committee report, which is Works, moved by Mayor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Miriam Pietri, that the recommendations contained in items 1 to 5, inclusive of report number 4 of the Works Committee, be adopted. Members of council, polls? Okay, seeing none. Sorry. Okay, so. All right, thank you. Okay, members, council, my chat box.
Number 1 for the conflict.
Okay, so item number 1 of Works is pulled for the conflict.
As well as item number 5 for recorded vote on the conflict.
So 1 and 5, Mr. Clerk, for recorded votes. On the remainder? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that carries. On item number 1, a recorded vote for the conflict. Mr. Clerk, when you're ready.
Anderson.
Yes.
Ash.
Yes.
Barton.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Chapman.
Yes.
Collier.
Yes.
Crawford.
Yes.
Dyes.
Yes.
Drew, declaration of interest. Foster.
Yes.
Grant.
Yes.
Hyatt.
Yes.
Leahy.
Yes.
Don't forget Councillor Kerr.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Miriam Pietri.
Yes.
McLean. McLean.
Yes.
Mitchell.
Yes.
Mulcahy.
Yes.
John Neal.
Yes.
Joe Neal.
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes.
Pickles.
Yes.
Roy.
Yes.
Ryan.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Watton.
Yes.
Yamada.
Yes.
Chair Henry.
Yes, that carries. Before we call the vote on item number 5, Mayor Drew, you will have a conflict?
Yes, I do. Sorry, I should have included that one.
Okay, did you want to declare your conflict?
Yes, I'm declaring a conflict.
Okay, the reason?
What's the nature of the conflict, Mr. Chair?
I've just asked that, Councillor Neal. The reason for the conflict, Mayor Drew?
I'm sorry. Same reason. My son is an employee of the Works Department and could possibly be assigned to this job.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Clerk, when you're ready, I'll call the vote.
Anderson.
Yes.
Ash.
Yes.
Barton.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Chapman.
Yes.
Collier.
Yes.
Crawford.
Yes.
Dyes.
Yes.
Drew declaration. Foster.
Yes.
Grant.
Yes.
Hyatt.
Yes.
Kerr.
Yes, thank you.
Leahy.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Mayor Pietri declaration. McLean.
Yes.
Mitchell.
Yes.
Mulcahy.
Yes.
John Neal.
Yes.
Joe Neal.
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes.
Pickles.
Yes.
Roy.
Yes.
Ryan.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Watton.
Yes.
Yamada.
Yes.
Regional Chair Henry.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, before we go further, can we figure out what's going on with this echo? Because it's going to be quite just difficult to speak on anything if there's a you're hearing it twice.
So we're not hearing that in the chamber, but our IT, Roger and our IT department has recognized the challenge and is working on it, so. Members of council, in the chat box, I have questions to staff. We'll start with Mayor Foster on works, and we'll do this before we go to the committee of the whole. Mayor Foster?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair, through you to Ms. Siopas, I'm looking at the council information package of April 23rd. There is reference to a letter from Clarington with regards to the AMISA testing and I'm going to call it distribution of the results from the AMISA testing. In Clarington, there have been concerns with correspondence that these are, I'm going to say, falling on deaf ears. My understanding is that is not the case, that you'll be working on these and bringing a report back to regional council, and then information, depending on what regional council does, will be coming back to Clarington. But can you speak to that briefly so that everyone understands that this is being worked on?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of council. Yes, I can. Thank you for the question. You're exactly right. We have received that correspondence. I believe it was dated April the 14th, and we're reviewing it and preparing a response back, and it will be in the form of a council report.
Thank you. That's all that I had. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor McLean, question to Health.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question to Health. I heard of an incident that happened at a daycare in Durham region last week where a mother came in and dropped her 2 kids off on a Monday. Followed the questionnaire as far as have you come in contact, your symptoms, all the standard questions. answered negative to all of them. Came back on the Tuesday and the Wednesday, answered the same questions in the negative, and late Wednesday afternoon, called the daycare operator and said that she had tested positive, that on the Monday she wasn't feeling well, but she carried on with dropping her kids off and neglecting to tell the daycare operator. As a result, 2 classrooms were shut down, 50 parents and kids were affected. My question to you is this being followed up under Section 22 in regards to charges against this individual who should have known better?
Okay, thank you. Dr. Kyle, are you on the line?
Yes, so Chair, perhaps I could follow up with Councillor McLean offline and get the name of the daycare off the top of my head. I really don't know what the status is in terms of legal activities. Would that be possible?
Yes, that would be possible. But I'll follow up there. What enforcement action have we taken on people that violate this this section and continue to potentially affect people?
So in general, I can't speak to this specific situation. If we do need to issue Section 22 orders, we do so. I've lost track of the number of individual Section 22 orders that we have issued, some to daycares. And with respect to legal activities, if such an order is not followed, then one of the tools we can use is of course, issuing tickets or a summons. Again, I don't know the specifics of this situation, but we use the tools that are available, either orders or fines and other penalties.
Okay, if you can give me a call offline, I think it's important that a message is sent that we're telling people that we take this very serious, and there are consequences for those that answer those questions incorrectly and adversely affect, in this particular case, over 50 parents who had to isolate their kids, isolate themselves, and so on and so on, especially in a pandemic situation that we're facing today. And this parent should have known better. And so I'm looking forward to the call, and I'm looking forward to see if down the road if we can give any stats as far as how many charges have been laid in situations like this. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Dr. Kyle. Looking forward to talking to you.
Chair, if I may, we do post online our legal activities, and the site to go is Check and Go Durham. It is a search engine, so if you have a name, you should be able to enter it into the search engine to see if any fines or legal activities were issued. So Check and Go Durham is the website. Thanks.
In opposition? Hearing none, that carries. Councillor Joe Neal on item number 1.
Yeah, an amendment, Mr. Chair, that I forwarded to Mr. Walton on item 1.
Yeah, so give us 1 second, Councillor Neal. We'll be able to put it on display. Moved by you, seconded by?
Yeah, I need a seconder.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Anderson. Okay, so this would be an item G. Go ahead, Councillor Neal.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Ms. Taylor referred me to a report that was done in 2015, which broke down what was supposed to happen in terms of the capital investments for Seaton, for roads, water, and other facilities like that, and it dealt with some of the oversizing. I guess what I'm suggesting is it'd be a good idea before we embark on phase 2 to kind of get a report card, and it doesn't have to be terribly detailed, but just a report card in terms of what has the region spent and what has the region spent in totality, and what has been funded by the landowners group, and how did we make out on that. So had a lot of projections in that report from 2015. I guess I'm simply suggesting that it might be a good idea for council to get kind of an update on actual numbers. There was a report done in the past from, I think it was from Watson or somebody like that, that said there'd be no cost to the rest of the taxpayers in Durham region to basically put Seaton on its track. And I think it just behooves us to check that, that's all. So, and the important thing is none of the development charges or none of the charges from Seaton go elsewhere to the region, which is not the case for, regional development charges in the rest of the region. So, like, for example, if a development charge is received in Clarington, it goes into the overall pot, but it doesn't work like that in Seaton. So I'm concerned that we don't end up having the taxpayers of the region fund the building of Seaton, that's all. So I just asking that the staff, and there's no specific time limit here, but I would think before we launch into phase 2 would be a good idea just to see exactly where we are, that's all. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. On the amendment. Members of council, I'm watching the chat box. Seeing none and hearing none, we'll call a vote on the amendment. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
In opposition? Hearing none, the amendment carries. We'll vote on item 1 as amended. Seeing, oh, sorry. Okay, thank you. Seeing no other comments in the chat box or hearing none, we'll call the vote now. All those in favor of item 1?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye. Yes.
Yes.
In opposition? Hearing none, that carries. We'll move on to item 3, Region submission to the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission. Councillor Joe Neal.
Yeah, I've just asked for a recorded vote, Mr. Chair, on the item. Thank you.
Just for a recorded vote, okay. Seeing anyone else wishing to comment on this? Seeing none in the chat box, I will call for the recorded vote now, Mr. Clerk.
Anderson.
Yes.
Ash.
Yes.
Barton.
Yes.
Carter. Absent. Chapman.
Yes.
Collier.
Yes.
Crawford.
Yes.
Dyes.
Yes.
Drew.
Yes.
Foster.
Yes.
Grant.
Yes.
Hyatt.
Yes.
Kerr.
Yes.
Leahy.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Marin Pietri.
Yes.
McLean.
Yes.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Mulcahy,
Yes.
John Neal. John Neal. Absent. Joe Neal.
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes.
Pickles.
Yes.
Roy.
Yes.
Ryan.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Watton.
Yes.
Yamada.
Yes.
Chair Henry.
Yes, that carries. Members of council, we'll move on to item 10, notices of motion. Request for blue box lid update. Councillor Crawford and Mayor Collier, are you prepared to go to move this now?
Yes, I am, sir.
Mayor Collier?
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Crawford, you have the floor.
Thank you. Chair Henry. Sorry. I just want an update on this on the project. The motion came forward in June of 2019, supported unanimously by council, and I'm just requesting that we have an update in June.
Okay. As a seconder, Mayor Collier, did you want to add? Okay, members of council, anyone else wishing to speak to this notice of motion?
I would, Chair.
Okay, go ahead, Mayor Collier.
Chat box. Just thank you, Chair. I mean, this direction was given to staff over 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, and as you can see by the motion that's printed in here, I mean, I'll just give you a number. I'll give you an Ajax number. We are just shy of $1 million a year in litter cleanup. That's majority of that items that blow out of blue boxes. So we're collecting this, and this is a regional program, and that's just our municipality. So I don't know what the other municipalities' costs they're incurring, but that's 1.5% of our annual budget. It is a serious problem. It's something we need to do, but I think we do need to address that kind of collateral damage, I'll call it, or unintended consequence of that extra cost to municipalities. These lids work very, very well. To me, I think it's a no-brainer, but for some reason, this has gone on for 2 years now, and we really need to get this on track. So that's all I'll say about it. Thank you, and I appreciate everybody's support, hopefully.
Okay, thank you. Any other member of council wishing to speak to this item? Seeing none and hearing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor?
Yes.
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 In opposition? Hearing none, that carries. Members of council, will move on to 10.2, anti-Asian hate. Councillors Lee and Yamada have given notice the following motion will be presented at the April 28th, 21 meeting. Councillor Lee and Councillor Yamada, you're prepared to move on?
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Yamada?
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Lee, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to start very much like I did at the Ajax council meeting with just a brief history of Asian hate and Canadian history. Ultimately, the Chinese came to Canada in the late 1800s to work as railway workers, to construct the CPR, and then to work in the mines, because those were the only jobs available. A $10 head tax was then implemented by Prime Minister John A. Macdonald, which it was increased to $50 with the Chinese Immigration Act of 1885, which actually was the first piece of legislation in Canadian history to exclude immigrants on the basis of their ethnic origin. Then in 1907, an anti-immigration rally resulted in 3 days of violence and vandalism in Vancouver's Chinatown and Japantown, with banners calling for a white Canada. In 1923, the Chinese Immigration Act was passed by the Parliament of Canada, outright prohibiting Chinese from immigrating at all. This included Chinese with British nationality, and this wasn't repealed until 1947, with the first real elimination of restrictions based on nation origins not happening till 1962. And of course, we can't the go-to for a lot of people is 1942. Japanese Canadians living in BC were forced from their homes and sent to internment camps. The Canadian government seized and sold their property even after the war, and many were deported. So the point is, anti-Asian racism is really as old as this country itself. And right now what we're seeing, and the reason we crafted this motion, was we're seeing Asians across the region, the province, and the country being verbally and physically assaulted, not for anything they did, but just by the way they look. Some stats provided by project1907.org are as follows. 30% of all anti-Asian crimes result in assault, with women being disproportionately targeted, making 60% of all incidents. 45% of all incidents have been in public spaces, and 45% happen to people between the ages of 19 to 35. Chief Rowler, when I asked him last council meeting, he said he believed that racially motivated crimes are being woefully underreported. And Inspector Martin of West Division, when he was reported to Ajax Council, confirmed that we've begun to see a significant increase in race-related crime. As a region, we need to step up. We need to continue to highlight these disturbing trends and say, as their elected leaders, that these hate-motivated attacks have to stop. I don't think it's political correctness. I think it's just a commitment to do better. And we've, as a region, we've taken the first steps. We're starting our anti-racism committee, and it's something that I think will do a lot of good for the region. But in the meantime, I think it's imperative for all of us to speak up using our voice. I'll finish by saying that anybody who's watching today and feels that they've been a victim of a hate-motivated crime, please report it to DRPS. Stand up, report it to the authorities. Nobody should have to endure this by themselves. And I like to think that through this motion, it's reflected that we will stand behind you as your elected officials. Thank you, Chair, for this time.
Thank you. Councillor Yamada?
Thank you, Chair. When I was growing up, my grandparents would tell me stories about their life in Vancouver and the journey from Vancouver to Ontario. My grandmother, who spent part of the war in Lemon Creek internment camp, my grandfather, who spent time in Tashme. Their possessions were taken from them. They were told that they could only take a suitcase with them and that everything would be there when they returned. And history tells us that it wasn't. My great-grandfather, who had been out for a walk during just around the time of curfew, was brought to an immigration facility. And for breaking the law, he was put on a train to go to a prisoner of war camp in Angler. Between Vancouver and his journey to the prisoner of war camp, he died. We don't know whatever happened, but he died. These stories are part of our Canadian history, but they're part of our history. And my grandmother, when I was growing up, always told me to do your best. Gambate was the term she'd use. And I really think it's important that we stand behind our Asian communities, not just here in Durham region, but across Canada. And, when you read the news and you hear, in Vancouver, an unidentified 92-year-old Asian man with dementia was thrown out of a convenience store and his head hit the ground while a suspect yelled racist remarks. That's not acceptable. That's not my Canada. I think when we look at Durham region and we look at the rich culture that continues to grow, the diversity, and the different folks who are choosing Durham region as home, we have a responsibility to show that we stand behind them and that any act of racism is not okay. Every year, we have the opportunity to join Thomas Q and the Durham Chinese Cultural Canadian Association every year. and to witness that history, to witness the culture, and to celebrate with them. And as we take those opportunities to celebrate, it's equally important that we stand with these communities when they are enduring, in this case, anti-Asian hate. So I am honored to stand with my colleague Sterling Lee and to support this motion, and would hope that we could have a recorded vote on this as well. Thank you, Chairman.
So we will call the recorded vote at the appropriate time. Thank you. Mayor Collier.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm happy to support my colleagues on this motion today, as I was happy to support this when it came before Ajax Council last Monday. I think it's very important that we address this. It's becoming more and more prevalent, and it's just not acceptable. I would like to talk to my regional councillor colleagues about an email I think we all received regarding the Day of Action Against Anti-Asian Racism. And I just want to tell you that we will be, I will be declaring through proclamation May 10th as the Day of Action Against Anti-Asian Racism, as May is Asian Heritage Month in Canada. I think we all received that same email from the organization, and I would, I guess, recommend or hope that we could also show support to the community by each of us having similar proclamations as well for that day being May 10th. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning. Very happy to and proud to speak on this motion. 100% support. I mean, you look at a guy like me, you might think, well, what's your connection here? And I think a lot of racism, regardless of what group we're talking about, if it's a case of out of sight, out of mind, people don't identify with it. They don't see, well, what's the big deal? My son's in-laws are Japanese Canadian, second generation. So my daughter-in-law's family has been here for a very long time. And during World War II, they were sent to internment camps, one of them in Temiskaming. And I've heard the stories. And so I am living it a little bit more than some Canadians, maybe many Canadians, and I have heard the stories. And just to echo Councillor Yamada's comments, you know, this is just not acceptable for any group. And I'm very glad to see that this motion is coming forward for this particular group of citizens within our country. They should have the same equal respect and treatment as everybody else, and they should be living free of any kind of racist comments or backlash, just like the rest of us would like to live our lives. And so I'd like to thank the two councillors for bringing this forward very much. Thank you, and my full support. And thank you for the, oh, and by the way, I have a beautiful little 4.5-year-old granddaughter who's the spitting image of her grandfather, not me, but she has the same color hair as I did when I was a kid. And I would just hate for her to go through life with that kind of censure. So thank you for bringing this forward, and happy to support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Pickles.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I thank my colleagues, Lee and Yamada, for bringing this forward. I will be supporting it. You know, racism of any kind directed to any group is inappropriate. And at this time, given the recent incidents against the Asian community, it's very appropriate that we deal with this at this time. And I would like to note at Mayor Ryan's initiation that Pickering Council on Monday night passed a very similar motion, modeled on the Ajax motion, and was passed, I believe, unanimously at the Pickering Council on Monday night. So we're supportive of this, and again, I thank my colleagues for bringing this forward.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Chair, and I echo the same sentiments. Thanking my colleagues for bringing this forward. It's an excellent motion, and too bad we have a need for this in this day and age. I hope someday we'll get beyond this. And you know, racism goes beyond boundaries. I saw an incident in the state against the Asian community, the Chinese community, Asian community, and it was the perpetrator was a black person. I'm sure you all saw that image, and there were a large amount of bystanders standing by, said nothing, did nothing, and that in itself is shameful and intolerable. Having said that, I know municipalities are dealing with this on an individual basis. I think the region should maybe step forward and do a motion, or there's this motion, but a statement that this is intolerable throughout the region, and Durham as a region does not tolerate this kind of behavior. I know in Clarendon we have the Confederate flags, and we don't know how to deal with it because of charter issues, etc. I don't know if the region can make us do anything about that from a region, make it a region-wide, a uniform region-wide venture to try and eliminate all symbols and signs of hatred in our society. This is a great place to live, and there is no place in our society for this kind of behavior. So, and that I am proud to support this motion, and I know my colleagues all will overwhelmingly support this. So again, thank you for the work you put into this and bringing this forward, and hopefully we don't have to do this very often. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Leahy. Councillor Leahy.
Yes, thank you, Chair Henry. So yeah, just fully support the motion that we have here on the floor. Like, we are growing a diverse community in the example that we all live. It's racism has no place in any of our community, and fully support this leadership position that we're taking here as a region, and happy to support it here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I will absolutely support the motion. It's important. It is important that we hear the stories and the personal impact, because when we don't hear the stories, we don't hear the impact, we get statements, and we've all heard them, and we've all heard them recently, that racism does not exist in Canada. I believe not that long ago, I read something by Conrad Black in the Post, suggesting that racism was not an issue, which is deeply disturbing. And equally, it's important to understand that this is not a zero-sum game. So I know that there are some groups that are concerned if you speak to one form of racism, it takes away from another, and it doesn't. Again, those stories are important. But Mr. Chair, a question, and I'm not sure if who it goes to. Quite possibly the CAO. We did have. I thought there was some diversity and inclusion training for counselors. My recollection, I may be wrong, was that had to be either canceled or delayed. It is that training is so important. Whether you're looking at unconscious bias, hearing the stories, the whole anti-Black racism and the dialogue that we've had on that, what we have heard today. So again, I don't know if it's the CAO can speak to, is that coming back? Did I miss something? And if not, I really think we need to do that, educate ourselves as counselors.
Okay, thank you. I'll have the CAO respond.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, that training is still available, and we're also developing additional training. As you know, we recently retained our new Director of Diversity, Equity and Inclusion, and she will be working with us on training opportunities for members of Council, of which anti-Black racism, sensitivity training, anti-racism training in general will certainly be part of it, and we'd be happy to bring more information forward on that. We will be coming forward in the next cycle for the terms of reference for the Council Task Force in combating all racism, so you will see that in June, and as part of that we're happy to talk about what training is out there and what training we need to add. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And to the councillors that have brought this forward, you know, I wonder if and how, and I don't mean to put work on you, you know, but these are personal stories that mean so much more than statistics and figures. And I would encourage you to perhaps document it in a way that we can share with the broader community, or perhaps that's something that Durham Region through the task force can look at. Mr. Chair, thank you to the councillors who have brought this forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other member of council wishing to speak to this? Seeing none in the chat box and hearing none, a recorded vote was called by Councillor Yamada.
Anderson.
Yes.
Ash.
Yes.
Barton.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Chapman.
Yes.
Collier.
Yes.
Crawford.
Yes.
Dyes.
Yes.
Drew.
Yes.
Foster.
Yes.
Grant.
Yes.
Hyatt.
Yes.
Kerr.
Yes.
Leahy.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Mayor Pietri. Mayor Pietri.
Absolutely, yes.
McLean.
Yes.
Mitchell.
Yes.
Mulcahy.
100% yes.
John Neal.
Yes.
Joe Neal.
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes.
Pickles.
Yes.
Roy.
Yes.
Ryan.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Watton.
Yes.
Yamada.
Yes.
Chair Henry.
Yes. That's unanimous. That carries. Members of council, we'll move on to unfinished business. That would be item number 2, confidential report of the Commissioner of Corporate Services in Finance. Councillor Joe Neal, I'll need a motion to go into closed session for labor relations or employee negotiations.
Mr. Chair, I can also indicate, I'm going to give you that motion. I'm also can indicate, though, that I had questions of a confidential nature regarding the cybersecurity breach that I wish to pose to our legal counsel in closed session.
Just 1 second, please.
And I'll second that when we need it, Mr. Chair.
So on the first item, Councillor, to go into closed session on item 2, we're going to need a seconder for that.
So seconded, Barton.
Okay. So Councillor Neal, are you moving both items to go into closed session?
Well, I'm moving the under 239 sub 2 to go into closed session on item 2 because it's labor relations, but I'm also indicating that in the same closed session, I wish to pose questions to our lawyer on the cybersecurity breach issue and perhaps get legal advice or kind of a different classification of closed meeting, Mr. Chair.
So, Councillor Neal, you're moving a motion to go into closed session for labor relations and employee negotiations and advice subject to solicitor-client privilege.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Clerk, you've got that? Yes, thank you. So seconded by Mayor Barton. On to going into closed session, we'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Yes.
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 In opposition? Hearing none. Mr. Clerk, how long do we need to go into closed session? 5? Members of council, we will recess. I'll look for a motion to recess for 5 minutes so that we can get set up to go into closed session. Moved by
Collier,
Councilor
move it.
Pietri, seconded by, who is the second person?
Collier.
Seconded by Mayor Collier. A 5-minute recess. We'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Opposed? Hearing none, we will return at 10:36. We are in recess. Members of council, I'll call this meeting back to order. Mr. Clerk, we'll need a roll call, please.
Anderson.
Here.
Ash.
Present.
Barton.
Present.
Carter.
To be consistent, here.
Chapman.
Still here.
Collier. Absent. Crawford.
Here.
Dyes.
Present.
Drew.
Here.
Foster.
I'm here.
Grant.
Here.
Hyatt.
Present.
Kerr.
Here.
Leahy.
Present.
Lee.
Here.
Mitchell. Marin Pietro.
Present.
Here.
McLean. Not present. Mulcahy.
Present.
John Neal.
Present.
Joe Neal.
Here.
Nicholson.
Here.
Pickles.
Present.
Roy.
Here.
Ryan.
Present.
Smith.
Present.
Watton.
Present.
Yamada.
Here.
Chair Henry is present.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. In the continuing interest of transparency and open government, I'm reporting in public session from today's closed session meeting. We went in for advice related to labor relations and employee negotiations and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege. There was no directions or motions made. Members of council, we are back in open session. Members of council, I'd like to, if you, to recognize today our proclamation presented to the Durham Region Labor Council on behalf of the Council of the Region and Municipality of Durham. We join communities across Canada to pay respect and remember the thousands of workers killed and those who still suffer from work-related injuries or illness, their lives and livelihoods forever compromised. We honor their families and their friends who have been affected by these preventable tragedies, and we pledge our commitment individually as an organization to recognize, support, and provide worker safety on site and at home today and every day by proclaiming. Members of council, will you please join me in a moment of silence? Thank you. Members of council, return to our agenda. The item number 2 of the Finance and Administration Committee meeting. The recommendation is now on the floor. Okay. Councillor Neal, Joe Neal.
Yeah, I'm going to move, Mr. Chair, to divide C from the balance of the motion.
Okay, so to divide C, we're looking for a seconder.
Seconded, John Neal.
Seconded by John Neal. On dividing item C, we'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
In opposition? I did hear one no.
No.
Okay, that carries.
Recorded vote, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll do a recorded vote on A, B, D, and E, and then we'll do a oh, sorry.
Well, I think we have to do the recorded vote on the divide.
So was it whoever asked the recorded vote, is that recorded vote on separation? Remember?
Yes.
Okay. So, members of council, recorded vote is always in order immediately after an item, so recorded vote on separation. Called by Mayor Carter.
Anderson.
Yes.
Ash.
No.
Barton.
Yes.
Carter.
No.
Chapman.
No.
Collier. Collier. Absent. Crawford.
Yes.
Dyes.
No.
Drew. Drew.
No.
Foster.
Yes.
Grant.
No.
Hyatt.
No.
Kerr.
No.
Leahy.
No.
Lee.
Yes.
Miriam Pietri.
Yes.
McLean. McLean. Absent. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mulcahy.
Yes.
John Neal.
Yes.
Joe Neal.
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes.
Pickles.
No.
Roy.
Yes.
Ryan.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Watton.
Yes.
Yamada.
No.
Chair Henry.
No.
Carries 15 to 12.
It carries 15 to 12. So we will call for the vote on item A, B, and D, and E.
Sorry, Mr. Chair,
Yes? Sorry.
I did want to make a comment on that. I think it's appropriate for open session on the balance.
Okay, sorry. So you have a comment on A, B, D, and E?
Yeah, I'm not going to support it. I realize it'll pass overwhelmingly. The reason is because of the continued increase in the cost of benefits, which I think is consuming more and more of the taxpayers' dollars, and this will result in that continuing to
Oh my goodness.
increase at a fairly alarming rate, in my mind, and that's all. So that's why I'm voting no. I will ask for a recorded vote.
Okay, so members of council, if you did hear a big bang, that is thunder. So I have my microphone on, so just so the building is not falling down. Okay, any other comments on this item? Okay, so we'll call for a recorded vote on A, B, D, and E. Mr. Clerk?
Henderson.
Yes.
Ash.
Yes.
Barton.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Chapman.
Yes.
Collier. Collier. Absent. Crawford.
Yes.
Dyes.
Yes.
Drew.
Yes.
Foster.
Yes.
Grant.
Yes.
Hyatt.
Yes.
Kerr.
Yes.
Leahy.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Miriam Pietri.
Yes.
McLean. McLean. Absent. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mulcahy.
Yes.
John Neal.
Yes.
Joe Neal,
No.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Pickles,
Yes.
Roy,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Yamada,
Yes.
Chair Henry.
Yes. Okay, on item C. Recorded vote.
I've got something in the chat box, Mr. Chair.
Sorry. Just give me 1 second, please. Councillor Neal, I don't know what I just see in the chat box amendment on C. I don't see what you've sent.
I'm going to give you the amendment right now.
Okay. Remember, all amendments are needed to be submitted to the clerk in writing, so I'll have the clerk.
It's a fairly simple amendment.
Okay, go ahead, please.
So my amendment would be that there be no increase for 2023 under this resolution. In other words,
sorry, one second, please. So, Councillor Neal, are you looking for a 2-year delay? Is that the intent?
no. What I'm simply suggesting if I get a seconder, is this particular approval that has been made applies for calendar years 20, 21, and 22, whereas for whatever reason, C talks about 2023 as well, and there's no corresponding 2023 provision in what's just been approved. So I'm just suggesting that 2023 shouldn't even be addressed as part of C, because it's not in the original A, B, D, and E. It's a 3-year agreement starting in 2020. So why are we talking about 2023 as part of C? This is beyond me. And there was not a quote when the 2021 resolution came forth. It didn't say anything about delaying it. It said there'd be no increase for council for 2021. Everybody, I think, supported unanimously. There was nothing in there that said our increase was going to be delayed, that I recall. So that's all. So I'm just suggesting we keep this within the parameters of expiring in 2022, and 2023 will be dealt with down the road by presumably another council. And I'm not suggesting there be no increase. I'm saying it should be left to the bylaw to speak in 2023. So that's all.
Thank you. Looking for a seconder?
Second, John Neal.
Okay. So on C, I just got to make sure the clerk's got the appropriate wording so we can have it read back. Mr. Clerk, when you're ready.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I believe the intent is to delay the increases that are referred to in C until 2023.
No, that wasn't the intent. No.
Okay,
Can I, Mr. Chair, can I suggest, if I could be, can I move a recess for 5 minutes, and I'll email what I was intending as part of this to the clerk?
That would be appropriate. So I'll take them. Well, why don't we do, we'll do a 10-minute recess, moved by Councillor Joe Neal, seconded by
Councillor Neal, John.
Councillor John Neal. All those in favor of a 10-minute recess?
Yes.
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 No.
Aye.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed?
Yes.
That's one.
Yes.
Oh, so I believe I heard three opposed. Mr. Clerk, did you hear three? You know what, members of council, just call the recorded vote on the recess, please.
This is a recorded vote on the recess. Anderson?
Yes.
Ash?
No.
Barton?
Yes.
Carter?
No.
Chapman?
No.
Collier? Collier? Absent. Crawford?
Yes.
Dyes?
Yes.
Drew?
Yes.
Foster?
No.
Grant?
Yes.
Hyatt?
Yes.
Kerr?
No.
Leahy?
No.
Lee?
Yes.
Yes. That was a yes.
Mayor Pietri?
No.
McLean? McLean? Absent. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mulcahy?
Yes.
John Neal?
Yes.
Joe Neal?
Yes.
Nicholson?
No.
Pickles?
No.
Roy?
Yes.
Ryan?
No.
Smith?
No.
Watton?
No.
Yamada?
No.
Chair Henry?
Yes.
Carries 14-13.
It carries? So we're...
Recess for 10.
Members of council, that carries 14-13. We are in recess for 10 minutes. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Anderson?
Here.
Anderson? Absent. Ash?
No, he's here.
Present.
Anderson's
Okay.
here.
Ash?
Present.
Barton?
Present.
Carter?
Here.
Chapman?
Here.
Collier? Collier? Absent. Crawford?
Present.
Dyes?
Present.
Drew?
Present.
Foster?
Here.
Grant?
Here.
Hyatt?
Present.
Kerr?
Here.
Leahy?
Present.
Lee? Lee? Absent. Marin Pietri? Marin Pietri? Absent. McLean? McLean? Absent. Mitchell?
Present.
Mulcahy?
Present.
Councillor Lee is present. John Neal?
Present.
Joe Neal?
Here.
Nicholson?
Present.
Pickles?
Present.
Roy?
Present.
Ryan? Ryan? Absent. Smith?
Present.
Watton?
Present.
Yamada? Yamada? Absent.
Here.
Yamada is present. Chair Henry is present.
Okay,
Ryan's present.
Mayor Ryan's present.
Ryan is present.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, if you could show the amendment, please. Okay, Councillor John Neal, first of all, Councillor Joe Neal, this is the intent?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Councillor John Neal, are you still willing to second this?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
the item is on the floor.
Can I speak to it, Mr. Chair?
Yes, you can. Councillor Joe Neal, go ahead.
Thank you. So I don't understand why we would be setting out an increase for 2023 for council when that's not what's part of what just got approved, only goes to 2022. So the no increase for 2021 just said exactly that. No increase for 2021. It didn't say it's delayed a year or it's, somehow it's going to be made up. So I'm just trying to make it abundantly clear that that's the case, and I think that's fulfilling the intent of what was passed when that was unanimously voted on. But there's no delay in that increase, it's just no increase. And I think we need to stick to the bylaw, which says, in 2023, there will be a process, however that happens, if there is an increase. Deal with it under the bylaw at that time. If council made a different decision in 2023 or as part of any budget or something, leave it to that. But I think it would be an error to somehow set out an increase for council and the regional chair for calendar year 2023 when what's happening for staff goes to the end of 2022. So that's all. I'll ask for a recorded vote. Thank you.
Okay, record a vote at the appropriate time. Councillor Ash?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I won't be supporting this. I'm not quite sure if Councillor Neal is understanding how it works, but I understand quite clearly because it's the same process we have in Pickering, where councillors get the same increase in their salary the following year of the increase of our non-union. So the motion that we've already passed in regards to the non-union speaks to a 2020, 2021 and 2022 increase. And the 22 increase is what council gets in 2023. The reason a bylaw was introduced, I wasn't on council at that time. I know there's some members around the table, the virtual table are, but I expect the reason we did that is to take the politics out of council remuneration, keep it current, and to make sure that we don't fall out of whack in terms of having a large increase or a need for a catch-up. So I think the bylaw speaks clearly to the process, and that's council will get the increase the year after the non-union, similar as in Pickering. I know other jurisdictions, I think Ajax has something about their increases, a percentage or 75% of everyone else. Councillor Collier, or Mayor Collier has explained it to me before. I just don't recall it right now. So again, it's to keep it arm's length, unpolitical. I did support no increase this year in solidarity to our community, which we're suffering from a pandemic. I think we can certainly give consideration to that next year as well. So I won't be supporting it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And that, along the same vein as Councillor Ash, but a question to Commissioner Beaton. This amendment says that a 2023 increase would be dealt with under the relevant bylaw. Does the relevant bylaw not make the increase 2023 based on the increase of 2022 that the non-unionized, exempt, whatever you call them, are getting? Is that how the bylaw reads and is interpreted, Commissioner?
Through the chair, that is exactly how the bylaw reads. The general increase awarded to management of the Regional Municipality of Durham with a one-year delay.
Right, and so if I was to extend that, so you know, we're into a contract for what is it, 2021, 22. So the last contract, let's assume, was 17, 18, and 19. So the increase that came in 19 to the exempt group, that increase came to this council in April of 2020. Would that be correct?
That would be correct.
Right, so consistency with the bylaw, and we did a notwithstanding, I assume, when this council decided not to take any increase in 2021. This is not a makeup of the amount of money that we forfeited for 2021. This is just applying the interpretation of the current bylaw.
Through the chair, that is correct.
Great. Thank you for your answers, Commissioner. And like Councillor Ash, I won't be supporting this amendment. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any other member of council wishing to speak to this item, the amendment? Seeing none in the chat box and hearing none, Mr. Clerk, a recorded vote was called.
Anderson?
No.
Ash?
No.
Barton?
No.
Carter?
No.
Chapman?
No.
Collier? Collier? Absent. Crawford?
No.
Drew?
No.
Foster?
No.
Foster? Absent. Grant?
No.
Foster said no. Grant, no.
Hyatt?
No.
Kerr?
No.
Leahy.
No.
Lee.
No.
Mayor Pietri.
No.
McLean. McLean. Absent. Mitchell.
No.
Mulcahy.
No.
John Neal.
Yes.
Joe Neal.
Yes.
Nicholson.
No.
Pickles.
No.
Roy.
No.
Ryan.
No.
Smith.
No.
Watton.
No.
Yamada. Yamada.
No. No.
Chair Henry.
No. The amendment loses. On item C,
Do I still have the floor, Mr. Chair?
go ahead.
Yeah, I want to, if I could, pose to Mr. Beaton. Mr. Beaton, you indicated to Councillor Chapman that the bylaw, this was in fact, this is being done in accordance with the bylaw. So what does the bylaw actually say? Is it tied to the ONA collective agreement?
Through the chair, no, it's tied to the management increase. And what you're now raising is within this confidential report, there was a indication of management tying to the same rates as ONA. So it technically the paragraph.
What does the bylaw actually say then?
So the bylaw says that members of council, regional council shall accept the chair, receive their appropriate pay at that time in 2004, and Section 1B, therefore, such annual amount payable shall be increased by the same percentage as the general increase awarded to management group of the regional municipality of Durham with a 1-year delay. So bylaw 08/2004 1B. Therefore, such annual amount payable shall be increased by the same percentage as the general increase awarded to the management group of the regional municipality of Durham with a 1-year delay. So, based on the examples that were provided by Councillor Chapman, in 2019, assuming a 1.5% was given to members of management, in 2020, council would have received a 1.5% as example. So what you're presenting today is a 2021 that happens to go to council in 2022, a 2022 increase that goes to council in 2023, matching the requirements of the bylaw.
So can other collective agreements have an impact on that?
No. It follows the management group of the regional municipality of Durham.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other member of council wishing to speak to item C? Then I will call the vote on C. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Recorded vote, Mr. Chair, sorry.
Recorded vote at the appropriate is always appropriate after dealing with the item immediately. So, Mr. Clerk, when you're ready.
Anderson.
Yes.
Ash.
Yes.
Barton.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Chapman.
Yes.
Collier. Absent. Crawford.
Yes.
Dyes.
Yes.
Drew.
Yes.
Foster.
Yes.
Grant.
Yes.
Hyatt.
Yes.
Kerr.
Yes.
Leahy.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Mayor Pietri.
Yes.
McLean. Absent. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mulcahy.
Yes.
John Neal,
No.
Joe Neal,
No.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Pickles,
Yes.
Roy,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Watton,
Yes.
Yamada,
Yes.
Chair Henry.
Yes, that carries. Members of council, will move on to announcements. Councilor Miriam Pietri.
Mr. Chair, thank you for the opportunity to make an announcement today. I wanted to do so knowing also your affinity and your connection to Scouts Canada. We want to thank Scouts Canada for working with the City of Oshawa and ultimately on behalf of all residents in the region of Durham for their collaboration in an effort that spans a great deal of time for me, but under the leadership of yourself and also and especially this term of Mayor Carter and councillor colleagues at the regional level, being Councillor Nicholson, Councillor Chapman, Councillor Kerr, Councillor Neal, and I hope I haven't missed anyone on the Oshawa Council, and each and every single local city councillor, and in particular our staff. We were able to undertake and execute a heritage designation for a property that I believe all Canadian citizens and anyone visiting Oshawa would be proud to recognize as 155 plus acres of green space, and that being Camp Samek. So on behalf of everyone involved, I'm proud to have been a part of this process, and I look forward to future generations who like myself and family members, as well as I believe yourself and others on council, have been able to experience the learning capacity of either the Beavers or Cubs, Girl Guides or Scouts at Camp Samek, a majestic green space donated by Colonel Sam McLaughlin, who, as you know, was the founder of General Motors of Canada and someone who has provided us with some very historic properties, ones that our entire region can celebrate, and this being a central park within an urban environment, second to none and unlike any other in an urban area of Canada. So on behalf of everyone involved, the announcement is that Camp Samek has been designated as a heritage property, and we're really proud to have this property for future generations in the city of Oshawa, and for everyone who visits our city in Oshawa and our region to enjoy and to visit. I thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chapman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My announcement is to bring to the attention of, am I going ahead there?
Yeah, go ahead,
Sorry.
please.
Of regional council, some exceptional work about one of our staff members. As I know, everybody on council knows, we had some terrible fires in Oshawa this year, both on Olive Avenue and on Glen Street, and which displaced obviously a number of people, not just the victims of the fire, but people that were living in close proximity as well. And these people needed to be looked after in many senses. They became homeless until certain repairs were done, all this. And I just want to acknowledge the efforts of Pauline Hopley, who is a longtime member of our social services team, for the exceptional work she did in looking after the people that needed looking after, finding them temporary places to live, making sure that they had food and clothing and those things. And while we know all our staff do exceptional work each and every day and have gone even far and above during COVID, I just thought that council should know that we've recognized, our mayor has sent a letter of thank you and appreciation, but I just wanted the rest of regional council to know that the exceptional work that Pauline has done, and not just in Oshawa, she does it throughout the region through the social services work that she does. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chapman. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Muslims across the world are celebrating the holy month of Ramadan, and unfortunately, for a second year now, they'll be breaking their fasts with their own families and not able to celebrate with their extended families and friends. And so just on behalf of Regional Council, I just want to wish all those celebrating across the region and the country and the world Ramadan Mubarak, and hopefully this will be the last year we celebrate alone, and next year we'll all be able to break fast together. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other announcements from members of council before I go to Mayor Barton? Mayor Foster, announcement, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be very brief. I believe we were all missing the Durham Region Labor Congress, the National Day of Mourning. We did recognize this morning, but Mr. Chair, I wonder if we could get an apology to them. This meeting went, I think, far longer than we anticipated. I'm thinking all or the vast majority of us had anticipated being at that meeting and unfortunately not able to. And it is an important act of remembrance. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take that and make sure that I write a letter to them and explain what happened today. So I will do that as direction. Any other announcements? Okay, so Mayor Barton, what we'll need to do is to waive the rules. So we'll need to get 2/3 to introduce a motion. So Mayor Barton, if you would go ahead, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So, as we're aware, the cyber breach affected Uxbridge in a fairly meaningful way.
No, before you speak to it, please introduce the motion to waive the rules to add the item. So we need 2/3.
Thanks. I have a notice of, I have a motion here, and I'll need 2/3 majority. It's on the cyber incident.
Okay. So, and I believe in the chat box, Councillor Anderson, you're going to second that?
That's correct. I'll second both.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Members of council, the motion is to waive the rules to add the item related to the Uxbridge that was talked about this morning. So we'll need 2/3, so I'm listening. All those in favor?
Yes.
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 Aye.
Okay. In opposition? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk, that gives us our 2/3. Mayor Barton?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. As the majority of people on council are aware, Uxbridge was affected in a fairly large way for our residents with the cyber breach.
Okay, so just...
there's lots of interest with our upper management.
Before you speak to the item, introduce the motion.
Okay, I move that Regional Council permit Uxbridge Council and our upper level staff to receive the confidential memo that was released to Regional Council.
Clarify. So we'll have to, just give me 1 second and I'm going to work with the clerk to give you the appropriate wording, okay? Yeah. So, Mayor Barton, I understand exactly what you're trying to do. So what I'm going to suggest is that you want to share the confidential management staff and council, senior managers and council in confidence. It's still a confidential memo. Okay. Mr. Clerk, did you grab that wording? Okay. Councillor Anderson, are you still willing to second that?
Yes, I would. Yes, I would have added that they'd have to keep it confidential as well. So that's fine.
No, remember this. Thank you. So we have a seconder, Mayor Barton. This is an item that was discussed in closed session. So remember, it is a closed item. You do have the motion on the floor.
Okay, I can certainly speak to it if it's needed. Uxbridge was negatively affected. This is of great interest to our residents and to our management and council, and we would like Uxbridge to have all the information that this council has.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's good. So I believe I got a wave first on the screen. Councillor Marin Pietri, did you want to speak to this?
Mr. Chair, I support the request being made by Mayor Barton and any other mayor who wishes to have the same provisions for their council and corporation. I just wanted to note that if there was a need for a seconder, that I would be happy to support it. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Turn it off. 1 second, please. Okay, so thank you. So just for just to check, and I have something that it's just clicked. I'm going to ask Mr. Hunt to comment, if that's okay.
Sure.
Mr. Hunt?
Thank you, Chair Henry. And given that we're in open session, I will say that it is not my position that this constitutes a waiver of privilege, and I would reserve my right to argue that it doesn't. However, I will say that from the perspective of just general information, that when privileged information is passed from one legal entity to another legal entity that doesn't have a common legal interest, it does give rise to the potential argument that privilege in that document is waived, and notwithstanding the two parties may wish to treat that as confidential, any third party, for example, another claimant in the lawsuit, might take up the argument that what's happened would constitute a waiver of that privilege, and we would lose our ability in that circumstance to protect it. So to be clear, I would maintain and I could speak to this more in closed session, but for the purposes of open session, I'm just providing that for general information as a risk member. There may be another way for, I understand the concerns of Uxbridge, and I believe to a limited extent, I do believe I understand their interest in this, and there may be another way for us to work with our insurance provider, who is also Uxbridge's insurance provider, in order to adequately address the questions that the Uxbridge Council has in a way that protects privilege as between Uxbridge and their insurer, who, as I said, happens to be the same insurer. So,
question to Mr. Hunt, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mayor Barton.
Would you suggest that I withdraw my motion because it is not required? Just so you're aware, I was asked to make this motion by Commissioner Beaton. So I'm getting conflicting information, but I will certainly take your advice.
Well, certainly, if we were to, it's correct to say that the proper way to provide this memo to Uxbridge's council would require a motion from all of council. However, I do think that there is a way in the interim that we could provide Uxbridge through our insurance provider with some of the information that they require. And perhaps this is a motion that could be tabled for a later date. And if it is required to provide that confidential memo, we would at least have the opportunity to consult with our insurer beforehand.
Okay. If you don't mind, Mr. Hunt or Mr. Chair, could we just get Commissioner Beaton to, there is a meeting scheduled, to just agree to this, and then I would withdraw my motion.
Take his legal advice, and he's not recommending that.
Could I, and sorry to interject, Chair Henry, but perhaps if we just made one slight amendment to the motion to say subject to advice from the region's insurance provider, and that would allow us to first check with the insurance provider. So we would have council's direction to do that, but it would be subject to the advice from the insurance provider. If they say no, we'll find another way around it to get Uxbridge the information that they require.
Okay, so I will take that friendly amendment from you, Mr. Hunt. Thank you.
So Mayor Barton, are you taking that as a friendly amendment?
Yes, I am. And we do have the seconder by Councillor Anderson.
Yeah.
We'll see if he will also second.
Yes, that's fine with me. Take the solicitor's advice. It's always a good thing.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so I'm not sure. I do have my screen open, and I did get a wave, but I have Councillor, so I'll come back to you, Councillor Miriam Pietri. I'll go to Councillor Joe Neal first.
Well, I don't understand why it's necessary for Uxbridge councillors or staff to see a memo from our lawyer to us. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't see why that would be. And I'm concerned that once you waive privilege, you can't shut that door. So, you know, what happens if Uxbridge turns around and goes after the region for something? So I don't support just starting to distribute our legal memos to other municipalities or whatever. So you want to start that, then there's lots of memos that could go around to various other municipalities, and I just think it's a bad road to go down, that's all. So I don't support, you know, and then I don't understand the council direction if you put a exception in there for your insurer. I mean, it's, I don't understand the thinking there, but so I don't support that. Now, I did have another question though about this whole issue, Mr. Chair, and if I'm out of order, let me know. But when are all the other affected parties going to be notified?
There's a motion on the floor we'll deal with first, and then I'll come back to you, Councillor Neal.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Miriam Pietri?
I'll ask for a recorded vote on the motion.
Okay.
I just wanted to speak to Mr. Hunt's advice and just say that from the information that we were provided, as well as on other legal files, I have to say I'm not sure if there's anyone better than Mr. Hunt in the legal municipal world right now in providing us information in a coherent and in an understandable fashion. So I really appreciate that level of transparency and also willingness to work with other municipalities.
Thank you. I'm just having the clerk put the motion on the screen. So just give it 1 second, please, members of council. Okay, members of council, the item should be on your screens. Okay. Okay, the item is on the screen. Questions? So a recorded vote has been called by Councillor Joe Neal. Mr. Clerk, when you're ready, I'll call the vote.
Anderson.
Yes.
Ash.
Yes.
Barton.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Chapman.
Yes.
Collier. Collier. Absent. Crawford.
Yes.
Dyes.
Yes.
Drew.
Yes.
Foster.
Yes.
Grant.
Yes.
Hyatt.
Yes.
Kerr.
Yes.
Leahy.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Mayor Pietri.
Yes.
McLean. McLean, absent. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mulcahy.
Yes.
John Neal.
Yes.
Joe Neal.
No.
Nicholson.
Yes.
Pickles.
Yes.
Roy.
Yes.
Ryan.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Watton.
Yes.
Yamada.
Yes.
Chair Henry.
Yes, that carries. Members of council, we will move on to bylaws. Councillor Ash.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's moved by myself.
Mr. Chair, I indicated I had questions on this cybersecurity issue.
Sorry, Councillor Ash. Councillor Neal, questions?
Well,
we're also in
we
public
just
session.
talked about the Uxbridge issue, but when is the rest of the residents affected by this going to be notified?
I'll turn to our CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Notifications are ongoing as we speak. We're just waiting for confirmation as to when the school boards will be distributing notices to parents and students, but I would anticipate between this week and next they will all be issued.
So to everybody that's been affected by this breach?
That's my understanding. If Commissioner Beaton has any further information, could you jump in? Thank you.
Through the chair, as the CEO stated, notifications are ongoing, and the school boards, we're waiting on them, and that should be this week. And that would be the remainder of the notifications.
So if school boards, are they going to be treated the same as Uxbridge in terms of sharing of information that we've just authorized?
No, they are not. It's quite a different situation with the school board's councillor. They are simply helping us disseminate the information.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Mayor Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A slight tangent here. A great deal of concern has been expressed over this, as well it should be. I know that cybersecurity training was offered to members of regional council. I know the first uptake was somewhat disappointing in terms of the number of councillors that took that training. That was noted again. Do we know how many councillors have done that? Is it still available?
Mr. Beaton?
Through the chair, the training is still available. The uptake from the last session has not increased.
Okay, so perhaps for those councillors that are concerned about cybersecurity, we should get the link out and ask them to please take the time. My recollection is it did not take a lot of time to finish. Thank you, and thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chair. This was, as I say, a bit of a tangent on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, seeing nothing else, Councillor Ash, please.
As I was saying, Mr. Chair, the motion's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Lee that bylaw numbers 15, 2021 and 16, 2021 inclusive be passed this 28th day of April 2021.
Thank you. We'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Yes.
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 Aye.
Yes. Yes.
Aye. Aye.
In opposition? Hearing none, that carries. Councillor Ash, motion to adjourn, please.
Thank you, Mr.
Just
Chair.
1 second.
It's
I
moved
just
by
want to make sure.
myself and seconded by Councillor Lee
Ash?
that bylaw number 17, 2021 be a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Regional Municipality of Durham at their meeting held on 28th day of April 2021 be passed.
Okay, thank you for the catch. I appreciate that. We will call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye. Yes.
Thank you. And Councillor Ash, if you could do the motion to adjourn, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move adjournment.
And
Councillor Lee, second.
Seconded by Councillor Lee. On adjournment, we'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Aye, aye.
Yes.
In opposition? Hearing none, thank you very much. We are adjourned. Stay safe, everyone. Have a great day.
In 1676, the unique designs have added character to some of the world's greatest figures, such as Oscar Wilde and Admiral Lord Nelson. Be sure to visit the museum stores or the gift shop at Buckingham Palace, but make sure you leave enough time for shopping excursions at Harrods and Selfridge's department stores, where an entire floor is devoted to denim jeans.